Hello, everybody. So, welcome, first of all. Second of all, we are starting this service at 11:15 today, just to give some more time to have some tacos. It's a shorter service, so don't worry, we're not keeping you later on the other end. But you'll just have a chance to mingle, connect with some people, and we'll start in about 13 minutes and 29 seconds. So, yeah, just a heads up on that. Well, good morning, New Life. How are we doing this morning? That was really pathetic. You guys are the 11 o'clock crew. How are we doing this morning? That was much better. Man, did you guys have some of those tacos out there? They were delicious. I enjoyed them a lot. Hey, so today is going to look just a little bit different for us here. We have something called Tacos and Testimonies happening. So hopefully you enjoyed the first half of that already. And I just want to kind of give you a layout of what the format of our service is going to look like today. Because if you're new or visiting, this isn't super normal. I mean, I have my Birkenstocks on, so this is not super normal here. But we're going to have fun this morning and hear some really, really powerful Jesus stories. And so the format's going to look like this. We're going to have 3 stories shared here this morning. They're about 13 minutes a piece or so, and we're going to move through them. One of them is via video testimony, which is really cool. I'll introduce that in a few moments. But before I invite the first testimony person up here, I just want to share kind of why we do this. So there is a story in the Gospel of John, John 4, where Jesus has an encounter with a woman in a place called Samaria at a well. And there are a few things about this story that are pretty uncommon and controversial. So first of all, Jesus is a Jewish man in Samaria, so he's crossed a cultural boundary. He's sitting with a woman, which was kind of a big no-no in that time as well, so that's pretty controversial. But perhaps the most, controversial or astounding thing to me is that what he begins doing with this woman is he begins telling her about her whole life. He begins telling her story to her. Right? And so he says, you have had 5 husbands, and the man you're living with right now, he's not your husband, and going through all of these things. And what he doesn't choose to do is he doesn't share her story with her and then further exploit her shame. That's really important, because that's what religion does. That when our stories are shared, shame is often exploited. And I think of this woman and how often her story must have been used against her as a source of shame. What Jesus does instead is he actually provides her a path to redemption. He provides her an opportunity to know himself. And what's really striking about the end of this story that I think a lot of times we miss if we've read this story many times is it says this. It says, many Samaritans from that town, this woman's town, believed in Jesus because of the woman's testimony. He told me all that I ever did. Guys, there is something powerful in our Jesus stories, in our testimonies. In fact, when Jesus leaves the earth and he ascends into heaven, as recorded in Acts 1, you see him say to his disciples, you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you will be my witnesses. What does a witness do? A witness gives testimony. It's what we're called to do. We are called to testify to what Jesus has done in our lives. So that's what we get to do here this morning. And so what I'd love to do is I'd love to invite our first storyteller up here, Cheryl. And as she makes her way up, I just want to introduce Cheryl to you guys a moment here. So Cheryl is the head of our hospitality team. And over the last year, she's gone through a ministry training program that we have called Launchable Leaders. We talked about it last week. And it was through going through that Cheryl discovered that God has actually called her to share her story with our church and share her story publicly. And I just got to tell you, your story, Cheryl, was powerful during first service. And I believe God is going to do the same thing through you again here now. And so what I'd love to do is just pray over Cheryl and then invite her to share. So will you pray with me? Father, I thank you so much for this woman. I thank you that her story does not belong to herself. It belongs to you, Lord. And that this morning she is just offering it as a testimony of what you've done in her life and what you're continuing to do. And so, Lord, if there's any voice in her head, any inkling of the enemy trying to get in and plant doubt or worry, God, I just pray that you bind his voice in the name of Jesus, that you silence the voice of the enemy and allow the Holy Spirit who already lives in her to speak through her, Lord. And so thank you for what you've done in this woman's life. Thank you for what you're going to continue to do. We submit this time to you, Jesus. In your name we pray. Amen.
Hi. Second time don't think it's any easier. I think I'm still just as nervous. So let's just start with what Brad said about the woman at the well. I think it's resonated with me a little bit more than it did first service. I know that Jesus knows my whole story, and I know he's redeeming me. Back then, I kept the story, and I didn't want him in. I mean, I did, but I didn't want him in my story. I didn't want to tell you my story. You know a person here that is very different than what I was. Today, Jesus gives me peace, and I know he loves me, and he desires this great life that I couldn't even dream of. But prior to that, I was born to a mom that didn't want me. She was going to leave my dad, and then she found out she was pregnant. And so back then, you can't leave. It's very frowned upon. Today, it's a little bit easier, but back then it wasn't. So she stayed, but I wasn't wanted, and I was a burden, and I changed her life. I changed the direction she wanted to go into, and so she made me feel like that my whole life. I was a mistake. She didn't love me. She didn't hug me. She didn't give me the time of day, really. I was just somebody in the house with her. So through all of that, I guess I was really longing for love. And I thought that I would find love with men. So I became pretty promiscuous, I guess, if I said that right. But anyway, let's go back for a second. At 16, I had my first drink. And I knew that I was in trouble. I couldn't stop myself. I got so completely wasted, and my dad had to bring me in the house, completely humiliated the next day, and my mom wasn't there for me, and I had to do the walk of shame, like, oh, this terrible daughter now is causing more grief. But anyway, so I continued to drink and continued to pursue a love that I thought would be given to me through relationships or a good time going out and doing whatever. But I ended up meeting a guy at 18, and he got me pregnant and asked me to get an abortion, and I didn't, and he left the state. He didn't even stay here. He's like, I'm out. Well, that felt great. Not really. It was terrible. It wasn't good on a self-esteem. Oh, that's already really low. But anyway, so I carried them for 6.5 months to give birth to them that they weren't living. It was a stillbirth. They died in me 2 weeks before I gave birth, so they really didn't look healthy. They were horrific. That was tough. I think that was a major turning point for me in trying to drown my sorrows and escape that and escape everything, I guess. But anyway, I ended up having my son. I wanted him so bad. I was with his dad, and I wanted my son so bad, even though I knew I wouldn't stay with him. So super selfish, super crappy of me to desire this child that I thought would give me unconditional love, and knowing that I wasn't going to stay with him just temporarily, which is, I think it hurt him. I think it's affected him. But anyway, I had my son, which was great. I now felt like that I had that unconditional love. He was perfect. I got pregnant again 6 weeks later with my daughter. And their whole life, everybody thought that they were twins. And like, what? okay, God, like, did you do that to help me get through what I went through? Because before I got pregnant, I'm yelling at God and screaming in the car, going, what is going on? Why did this have to happen? Why is life so miserable? So anyway, I ended up leaving Corey and Sarah's dad. My family told me if I didn't marry him because we had children, they would disown me. Well, I married him and then left 2 weeks later, which again was really bad and really, really selfish on my part. Continued to drink, trying to live a life as a single mother, and then I met him. And here we are 26 years later with a whole bunch of junk that we went through. He saw us a damaged person, but in some ways, and he tells me that he saw my heart, even though it wasn't very obvious. It was damaged, it was angry, it was hurt, and hurting people hurt people. So you can imagine the amount of hurt that I did to my family. I did have some times where I would quit drinking and I'd get sober, and then we found church. I think the kids were maybe in elementary school, and we started going to Resurrection Life. And I was pursuing God. I knew that I knew of him, and I went to Oklahoma and got baptized and learned more about God and learned how much he loved me, only to come back to still drinking, unable to kick the habit, trying to go to God. Now I'm not all this other stuff. I'm also a hypocrite. People would drive by our house and make comments because they knew I was going to church, but yet I was just on the porch drinking. So that was not fun. Let me see. It's hard because you're telling your whole life, and it's like, how do you put all of it out there without stumbling? So I'm really sorry. So in the midst of all of this drinking, Aaron reached out to his parents, and well, we had a daughter, right? And Aaron's parents didn't want anything to do with me or our daughter. And that was even, worse in some ways. It's like my mom didn't want me. Now his mom didn't want me and didn't want our child. But Aaron ended up reaching out to them later on in life because he was desperate, even though they weren't talking to us, because I was out of control. And they brought me to rehab. And I got sober for 7 years. I think we had a decent life, but I don't remember right now every horrible thing. But I do remember just before the 7 years, I started drinking again. I had Sophia. We wanted her. She was planned. We desired her very much. And I'm not sure if it was too much. I don't know what caused me to go back into drinking, but I did. I thought that maybe I could handle it, but I think 7 years went by and 8 beers that night. It was like no time had even gone by. So I was full blown right back into it. Then we moved, and the kids grew up. I don't know any. Oh gosh, I'm losing my train of thought. Anyway, so I got into a car accident during this 3-year stint of drinking, and I was out in the middle of nowhere, dark. Shouldn't have been driving. I was completely not capable of driving. I hit 4 trees and got out of the car. I don't even think I had a scratch on me. The car was totaled. And some man, nobody is around, no one. I mean, it is dark and there is no one for miles. And then all of a sudden, this guy is at the top of the hill, in his silhouette is in his headlights. And all he said to me was, "Do you want me to call the police?" And I said, "Yes." I personally feel like maybe that was an angel or God. It was, maybe he sent that person. I don't know. But the question of asking me if this is what I want is really important to me because it changed my life. I went to jail and I came back and I got sober again. But this time I isolated. I didn't let anybody in. And I was white knuckling it the whole way through. I was angry. I was miserable. I was lonely. I was not going to church anymore. Trying to figure out how to do life without anybody's help because I didn't want anybody to taint me. Then we moved again and we found new life. And it was just before COVID. And I so desperately wanted to be in a community again. I wanted our lives to change. I wanted my daughter to have God and my husband to be proud of me. Not just the same old, same old. But anyway, COVID happened. So we didn't get to stay here. We had to go be at home and newly sober, trying to figure out how to navigate this crazy world. But we did it. And I get to look at that and say, oh my gosh, I did it. I stayed sober during something that was so horrible. I'm sorry if your story is not good in that time. But for me, my husband and I grew closer. We studied the Holy Spirit. We realized what we had. And then church opened back up. And here we are. Somebody said, "Can you do hospitality?" And we're like, "Sure, why not? Let's go. Let's do it." And now we've got a life. I have something to look forward to every single day. And I don't have to do it on my own. I remember working here and just being so, tight, tensed up. And God said, "Get off the throne and put me back on. I have a way for you to do it, and your way is not my way." And so I did, and I stopped grinding so hard, thinking that it was supposed to be done in my own will. And then we went, due to the leadership program, to Florida. And a lady there, her name is Christine Kane, and she had a sermon, and she talked about all the stories that she told her neighbors during COVID. And she said, "You have a story, and it's important. And God's got you." And I just don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember her saying that. And so like the next week, I finally gave this story to him, which, by the way, I didn't want to. It was lock down. No. This lock and key, throw it away. No way, I'm not telling anybody about how I used to be, because there was shame. There was disgust. But anyway, there was a couple days later, there was an altar call. And I don't remember what we were talking about, but I pushed Aaron out of the way. Sorry about that. Anyway, I did. I pushed him pretty hard, and I was like, "I gotta go," and I went up, and I got on my knees, and I just put my face to the floor, and I sobbed. And I asked God to take away the anger and all of the stuff that had muddied me up and help me, give me a life. And so we are here now today without anger, not like it used to be. I mean, sometimes I might get mad, but at least I can say, "Okay, God, let's switch this thinking around." With him, without me trying to do it, I can smile, and I've got peace, and I've got joy, and my children are in my life, and God is restoring our relationship. I get to enjoy grandchildren. I've got a better relationship with my husband. And I'm happy he stuck it out through all that junk. So I'm excited for the future. And I know that God is doing a work, and he will continue to do a work in me. The last time I got sober, I had this prayer room, and I would go in there and have moments with God. But I started a playlist. And this song, I don't know where it came from, but it just happened to pop up. It set the pace for my relationship with God in the last 3.5 years, and they're going to play it. So, yeah, it's a little bit about who I am with God. Thank you for listening to me, even though it was choppy. Sorry.
Worthy, no matter what you do, Lord, you're still perfect. In every move you make, there is a purpose. If ever there is praise, God, you deserve it. Holy, I'm brought down to my knees in your presence. When your love is near, it feels like heaven. Father, let my worship close the distance. Oh, letting go, I wanna dance with you. So, drawing close, I wanna worship you. Promise, you've never made a promise you don't honor. I leave my ambitions at the altar. Forever I'm in love with you, my Father. Oh, letting go, I wanna dance with you. So, I'm drawing close, I wanna run to you. Oh, letting go, I wanna dance with you. So, I'm drawing close, I wanna run to you. Take my heart, as broken as I am, as fragile as I stand. Take my hand and show me once again the life I'm meant to live. Take my heart, as broken as I am, as fragile as I stand. Whoa, take my hand and show me once again the life I'm meant to live. Oh, I'm letting go, I wanna dance with you. So, I'm drawing close, I wanna worship you. Phrases, I'm lost in conversation with the pages. Each one a love story for the ages. Let your word inhabit all my praises.
Can we just say thank you to Cheryl one more time? So our next testimony is from a woman that's part of our church named Sarah. And Sarah was here for service. Sarah's actually one of our family's neighbors, so she lives about a block away from us. And my kids lovingly call her Horsey Sarah, is what she's known as. And I actually had the opportunity to sit down with Sarah for the last couple months as we worked through her story. And we had a videographer come in and film her story to share with all of you today. We thought it'd be fun to switch up the format a little bit. So I'd love to invite you to check out Horsey Sarah's story.
I feel like I'm at that point where I need to be. I wouldn't have been on that road if I wasn't on the road that I was, which is crazy where, you think about it. I meet my ex-husband on the road on a horse. I get in a motorcycle accident on the road. We just met a couple new families out brushing the horses in the pasture. I met a couple new kids that are hopefully going to come to youth group with us. And just this road that I'm on isn't something I've ever imagined. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't on the right road. It was hard to grow up with really strict parents. We didn't talk about anything. So growing up with our family, it was kind of a thing where you don't talk about stuff, you sweep everything under the rug. That was always a really hard thing to deal with. I learned to keep everything bottled up, and I learned to keep everything inside. So when somebody hurt you, you never show any emotions, you never show any pain. You keep to yourself, you work really hard, you take care of your own stuff, and that is you just hold everything in. If you have hurt feelings because your family's treating you like crap, you just don't talk about it because it's not to be said. I feel like I did lack a lot of relationships. We didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't have friends growing up. We didn't have friends come over. We weren't allowed to go have sleepovers or do anything like that. It was, you are a homebody, and if that's what you do. You hang out at home, you do your work. So for me, when I was a kid and Grandma got a pony, it was one of the best things because I found that if I go out for a ride, I can kind of just relax, and it definitely helped deal with all the feelings that I had to just kind of pent up and hide up and lock up from everybody. So yeah, horses were from the start a huge thing for me. Grandma and Grandpa lived next door. My grandpa was my best friend growing up. He took the time to be a dad to me when my dad was working, and he took that time to talk to me. He was really cool. We were out camping with my other grandparents. It was a ton of fun, and we got home at 10 o'clock at night, and it was just dark, and I walked into the house, and the phone rang, so I answered it, and it was my uncle, and he said that Grandpa is in the hospital, and he is not going to make it, so you need to have everybody get up here as soon as possible. I remember my mom and dad leaving to go to the hospital. And they came home at night and said Grandpa didn't make it. And I didn't believe them because I didn't want him to be gone. So I got up in the morning and I pretended like it didn't happen. And I said, I'm gonna go see Grandpa. And they talked to me again and said that he didn't make it and he passed away. And I just wouldn't believe him, and I went over there and Grandpa was gone, and it's still really hard because he was like my person. So that kind of helped me and my dad build a really stronger relationship once he passed away, because my dad too said, he opened up to me and he said he was jealous, envious of the time that my grandpa would spend with me. Guess he didn't do that with him. It was probably the first time I really opened up with my dad, so it was good. It was hard, but it was good. I feel like without my grandpa, I would have never really seen the differences and seen the things that I did growing up. When I was 20, I actually moved out of the house. I bought my first house, a little tiny 800 square foot house and door, and with that, I was really just trying to do the right things in life. I was teaching Sunday school and just, being an active member in the same church that I was born and raised in. And my dad's friend had a girlfriend at the time, and she had met me and thought I was just the coolest thing since sliced bread. So she introduced me. She was just dying to introduce me to her son. Her son was Vern, my first husband. When we got married, it was really rough for me because I went to my church. I asked them if they would marry us, and I was speaking to one of the elders, and he said only if he changes his religion. And then I said, well, he doesn't want to change his religion. He's Catholic. I said he's going to keep believing his Catholic beliefs. That elder said that I don't need to attend church anymore there. There's nothing more the church can do for me if we don't have him change his religion. So being asked to leave the church hurt in so many ways that I can't even tell you how much it hurt. You think about it, and growing up, I was always told, you're not good enough. You're ugly, you're fat, you're not smart enough, you're not doing this right, you're not, nothing was ever good enough. And I was told that by my Christian family. So here I am going, well, what's the right Christian thing to do? Because if I'm not doing it right, what am I doing wrong here? I'm reading my Bible, I'm teaching Sunday school, I'm helping kids. I'm here, I'm putting in the effort, I'm praying, I'm believing, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, but yet I'm not good enough for it. But I'm perfect in that way that God created me. And to realize that the years of you're not good enough really tore down so much inside, but just a hug and that unconditional love from God can build it all right back up. Like that's something hard to describe. It's kind of like that freedom when I'm riding, and you can run your horse, and I can't describe it in any other way. Like you feel that freedom, and there's no fear, and there's no anything other than that just unbridled feeling of everything will be okay. I love motorcycles, love them, super fun. Don't love people on the roads, but I love motorcycles. If you're gonna ride my bike, you will wear a helmet and jeans and pants and a shirt and the whole shebang. So I took her out and I put my helmet on her. I made her wear tennis shoes, made her wear jeans. I made her wear a long sleeve shirt. I figured, since how I have years and years of experience riding a motorcycle, I would not wear my helmet because I would put it on her, more important. And I wore shorts, t-shirt, and tennis shoes. We were going down the road under the speed limit. Speed limit's 55. I was going 45. So we were in Hunter's Glen. We went down Division, down 142nd. We were headed Dix Market. And when we got on the expressway, over top of the expressway, there wasn't a stop sign there for a four-way stop. And there was a van, a middle-aged woman with two adolescent kids in the van with her. And she never stopped at the intersection coming off the expressway, and she creamed us. I shoved Evelyn off the bike, so she got a couple scratches, and they watched the van and me T-bone. My bike went one direction, I went another direction, and the van drove up over the expressway out of the way where she couldn't see me, and she never got out. Other people that seen the accident came to my rescue. They thought I was dead, kind of afraid to approach me, because obviously I did a lot of skidding down the road, and I was not dressed for skidding down the road. They said I was like a rag doll. They found one of my shoes on the other side of the guardrail going down the on-ramp of the expressway, and they called the ambulance. A couple people that seen it had a direct traffic around me. They said my head was bleeding really, really, really bad. I was in the hospital for a short amount of time, and then they released me. They missed some broken bones. They missed the brain bleed. They knew I had a bad concussion. I had all my teeth were knocked loose. I mean, the accident was bad. My trauma doctors that I dealt with said that I was so lucky. They've never seen somebody as lucky as me. The way my head bounced off the pavement, it saved my life not having a helmet on. It would have been a broken neck and a worse brain bleed if my head was heavier. There was a lot of rehab. There was a lot of problems that I had to deal with, a lot of things I had to overcome. Got to learn to walk again. Balance was a problem for me, broken bones, a lot of surgeries. I still get to deal with a lot of health issues. When I started understanding a lot of the things that happened, it really was hard for me to grasp what I was dealing with. I couldn't control stuff. It was really hard that I went from living this life where I was in control of everything. All I did was work. I need to do everything for me. You know, you can't count on other people. Like, just, you know, I had kind of fallen back into that belief of when I was growing up, where everybody said, oh, you're not good enough, or you can't do this, and you can't do that, and you're stupid. So when I got to that point in my life where now I can't control anything, that really sent me into a spiral of like, why did God let this happen to me? Like, what did I do to deserve this? So I started going back to church a little bit more. I did a program called Rooted at Corinth, and that was huge. That helped me realize that I am in this place right now because God wants me to be here. And kind of took it for granted that my accident was really bad, and people get in accidents less than that and they die from that. So learning that God is not done with me, and to just accept that and to just go with that and just not be in control of everything. And it's okay to ask for help. Like, that was a big one. And it's okay. It's okay to talk about your feelings, and it's okay to share your story with others, because other people probably feel the same way that I do. After the accident, it was really hard to get back on the horses. That is a thing that was hard for me. It wasn't anything for me. It was anger. It was, why can't I do this? And one of the biggest things was learning that if I just let go of the fear, and if I can learn to let go of the anxiety and the depression and talk about it, pray about it, share it with people, if you talk about the problem, it cuts the power of it in half. That is a big one that I learned too. And you know, even if you're talking to God in prayer about your problems, it cuts that power of it in half. You know, you're sharing your problem, you're voicing your problem. And that was a big one for me, is to be able to learn to let go and just trust that God's going to protect me. He took me this far. Why would he say, Sarah, your time's up now because you rode your horse and you're going to fall off and bump your head and you're going to be done? Like, I just had to trust in him and believe in him, and just understand that if he's bringing me through this, he's got a reason. I could have been gone. I could have been gone so many times. I lost my way with anger. I lost my way with anxiety. I still don't know what my plan is here on earth, but Jesus has something for me. And he has something pretty important and pretty big. Whether it's me touching somebody's life or Max growing up with me, like, Jesus has a plan, and I am thankful for that. It really brings me back to like the Heidelberg Catechism from church. What is your only comfort in life and in death? That I am not my own, but I belong body and soul to Jesus Christ. Like, I believe that. Like, I do. Like, that is, I belong to him, and he has created me in this most perfect version of Horsey Sarah that he can. And when I get off the road of where I'm supposed to be, he puts me right back on a different road to lead me to the right direction.
Awesome. Can we give it up for Horsey Sarah? So before we have our last testimony shared here today, I just want to share just a couple of things that are happening in the life of our church coming up this summer. And so a week from today, June 4, is our family meeting. And this family meeting is happening at night from 6 to 7 p.m., and it is for anyone who calls New Life home. So if you consider New Life your home church, we want to invite you to be a part of this. We're going to have childcare available for the youngsters, and we're going to have a great time of worship and celebration, but we're also going to be talking about what's coming up for us as a church. There are some pretty significant changes, announcements, exciting things coming up, especially for this fall. A really big announcement we're making that you're not going to want to miss. So we invite you, come back next week at night, 6 to 7 p.m., and there's going to be free Big Dipper ice cream. So we'll hand out coupons as a bribe to get you here, and you can go enjoy some free ice cream afterwards. The second thing is on your seat or near your seat is a card, and this says Summer Bucket List on the front. And if you open it, what you'll see is a whole calendar of events for this coming summer. And man, we have an exciting summer coming up for us as a church. And really what this is it's a bucket list of sorts. We are, yes, fourth graders here. And this is how it works. If you attend an event, participate in an event, you get a little New Life stamp on there. We have stamps in the cafe. You'll get a New Life stamp on there. And if you get 15 stamps, we have a prize at the end of the summer for you. Now here's the deal. Here's why we're doing this. If you'll notice, there's some really intentional things on here around building community with other people, around sharing the gospel, around serving our community, which we deeply believe we are called to. And so I want to invite you to participate in this summer. Keep this somewhere where you'll see it, maybe in your car, above your visor, on your dash, or wherever it might be that you're going to see this. And if you look at it, there's things like pay it forward at Big Dipper. Like Big Dipper ice cream has a stamp. They'd love to give you a stamp if you pay for the people behind you. Just some really cool opportunities to serve our community and serve each other this coming summer. So it's going to be incredible. And really, the first official event of the summer that we have coming up is 2 weeks from today, June 11. With our city, we are co-hosting a service in the park. And so this is going to be an outdoor service 2 weeks from today here in Wayland City Park. And our city has actually asked us to co-host this with them, which has been so cool to see the favor that we've had in this community with our city. And so they're bringing in Stud Muffin's cupcake truck. So there's going to be cupcakes and coffee and baked goods for sale there that morning. So Stud Muffins will be there at 9, and then the service is at 10. And it's just going to be an incredible morning. And it's the final event of Summerfest, which is our big community-wide celebration. So we'd love to invite you out 2 weeks from today, June 11, in the park. If you come here, we will not be here. So we'll see you over there. And then the final thing is just giving. I just want to take a moment, and this is the last Sunday of our current fiscal year that we're in. So our fiscal year runs from June 1 to May 31, the 31 days of May? I think so. Something like that. May 30, 31, whatever the last date is. And so our fiscal year resets next week. And maybe you see these numbers every week, and you wonder kind of what we're doing with surplus, all of that stuff. That is a great question to bring to the family meeting, because we're going to cover all of that next week. And so just want to say thank you for the way that you consistently and faithfully give. God is doing some really, really cool things through your generosity, and we are so excited to share that with you all next week. So with that being said, I'd love to invite our final testimony giver, storyteller up front here, Randy Evers. Everybody say hi, Randy. And Randy is somebody that I met in early 2022, so just early last year. And man, the first time that I heard his story in Big B Coffee here in Wayland, I'll never forget just the impact that it had on me. And man, this guy has a story worth telling. And I knew that at some point we'd want to share this story with our whole church. And so, man, I'm so thankful that you're here. I'm thankful for your willingness to share this with us, and I'd love to just pray over you as we begin. God, thank you so much for Randy. And Father, just for, God, what you've done in his life. God, there's been seasons that he's walked through that we don't fully understand on this side of eternity. But in the midst of it all, he's seen your presence and your hand. And so, God, I just pray for him as he shares. I pray that once again your Spirit will speak through him. And God, that we as a church will be built up and edified because of his Jesus story and his willingness to bring that to us. So God, thank you for this man. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thanks, Brad. Thank you. Doesn't get any easier the second time, I don't think. Not a public speaker. This is work for me, a lot of work. You can imagine. I know you can imagine. Kind of have a funny story. Sometimes I say, it seems like a TV show. I would have changed the channel a long time ago. It didn't work. Okay. So I was raised in the church. Went to church my whole life. Had a great, loving family. Went to Moline Christian School. Went to South Christian High. Just had a great, pleasant life, Christian life. Always heard how good God was. Always knew that his people were great and they were loving. Had some rough times in my life, and people from the church were frankly beautiful. They just held us up and just loved us. The church was always there. Always grew up in the church. It was a great thing. I met my sweetheart in high school. Actually, I met her in elementary school. I often joke, I say, I saw her in kindergarten, but I waited until 7th grade to write her a note. So, I had my sweetheart all through high school. We got married right after high school. We had 5 kids. We moved out to Shelbyville, lived there for almost 30 years. A great, boring Christian life. Just blessing upon blessing upon blessing. Just lived my life and just knew. I just knew that God was going to lead me to my retirement with this lady, and it was just going to be just like I planned it. It was just going to work out great. It just seemed too good to be true. It just went on and on and on. Like I said before, I always heard. I heard that God was always good, and I knew that. But unfortunately, after about 30 years, we were almost married almost 40 years. 2021 rolled around. You remember COVID? You remember that mess? It was a train wreck. Mass, TV, bad election, boo. Just 2021 is just a number in my head that I just can't shake. I can't get rid of that year. Bad year. This is a terrible year. Started out with a prostate biopsy. I had cancer. Had to have surgery. They say it's a good cancer to have. It's the most survivable. That's debatable to me. It's all bad. It's still all bad. My wife's mother, Clara, she was sick the year before. They called it pneumonia. They kept saying she just doesn't test for pneumonia, but she has it. We can see it, They didn't know the year before to call it COVID, I guess. So that's what she had. Made her really sick. She did come back. She was 84. She actually did really well. She came back, but she was compromised. She was beaten down a little bit. And by late or midsummer, we got to July, she died peacefully at home with us around her. It was sad. Just left a big hole in the whole family. Really tough on Linda. Just a beautiful, God-fearing woman that just passed on. Step one. Anyway, my sister Judy. I had an older sister, Judy. I have 2 older sisters, but the one that's closest to me, Judy, funny Judy. She's never married, never had kids, super great aunt. She's just a quirky lady. She had a pacemaker put in about 10 or 12 years ago, a little longer than that probably actually now. But she lost her apartment. She couldn't live in her apartment anymore, so she came to live with us. And it's kind of strange, but some of the older girls had moved out, and we had room for her. So she moved in, and she wasn't there long, and we thought, something's wrong with Judy. She can't make it from her car to her bedroom without stopping. And it wasn't long, and we were taking her to the doctor, and they were looking at her, and her heart was really compromised. I mean, she only had a small percentage of her heart working. It was not good. Even the pacemaker couldn't keep up. It wasn't working. But we took her to the doctor, and she saw the doctors, and went on, just not knowing what to do. And at one point, they finally said, well, you're a candidate. We can send you out to Minneapolis or Minnesota to go to the Mayo Clinic, and you can try to get a heart transplant. You can try to qualify for a heart transplant. So I see this as good news. I mean, you see it on TV. It always works out, right? It's great. Well, she had a weird blood type, and she had been going on for a long time. So ultimately, it didn't work out. She was just in tough shape. But, So she went out to Minnesota. My cousin Marcia stayed with her for almost a month. My sister Dawn, my oldest sister, went out there to stay with her. And Finally, it was my turn. I was going to take some time off from work and stay with Judy out in Minneapolis. And yeah, I couldn't because we had contracted COVID second time. We were locked down. We were quarantined. We were stuck at home. Alyssa, me, Linda, all stayed home. We all had COVID. For me, it was a pretty light case. Little cough. Just knew I was positive. Didn't want to head out. Certainly didn't want to go see Judy in that shape. But we waited it out. Finally, I tested positive or negative, and I headed out there, flew out there, and yeah. So I got to go visit my sister. My sister Dawn stayed out there with her husband Chuck, and we had Thanksgiving together. It was beautiful. It was great. One last favor I was granted with her. Yeah, so we had Thanksgiving together, and I couldn't believe how weak she really was. She just couldn't. She was just tough shape. Her heart was just a little speck of what it should have been. And yeah, at some point they broke it to us. They're like, you can't transfer her home. There's no way to send her home. She won't make it. It'll just kill her. So there she was. She was gonna end out at the Mayo Clinic out there. But so I'd been there a couple days. Don and Chuck were almost ready to leave. They were gonna head back and leave me there with Judy. But I got a call from home, and they said, you have to get home. You have to get home. The ambulance is coming for Linda. She didn't get better from COVID. She actually got worse. You left, and she got worse. So Chuck and I jumped in the truck. They had driven out there, and we just came back. We just flew through everything. It was an amazing ride. Yeah, I got home, and yeah, Linda was not home. She was at the hospital. She was in trouble. She had oxygen on, and you couldn't talk to her. She was sedate and just laid there. I remember talking to her at one point and just going on, and I told her, I'm not going back out to Minnesota. I'm staying here with you. And I remember her squeezing my hand so hard. And yeah, it was only a few days, and then they switched her from whatever room she was in to ICU. She wasn't getting better at all. They put a breathing tube in, they incubated her. They would put her in prone position. They would flip her over, and it was just so not real to look at. She was only in the hospital for 9 days. 9 days. And yeah, I remember I wasn't at the hospital, and my sister Dawn called me from Minneapolis, and she said, Judy has passed away. She's gone. And I thought, so glad that Dawn could be out there with her. So glad that she was in the best care possible out there. It just, with everything that was going on, it was actually better that she was farther away, and it was just a little bit isolated. It was actually worked out better. But later that day, I called Jessica, and I said, Aunt Judy has passed away. She's died. And I remember her telling me, well, when you come up to the hospital, you have to meet with a doctor we haven't talked to before, and he wants to talk to you privately. And it's kind of silly, but I thought, that's awesome, because I'm pretty sure they're going to do something different. They're going to fix her. This is going to all turn out great. This is going to be great. I remember going to the hospital and going up to the 4th floor, I think it was, and meeting the doctor. And I went to his room, and it was kind of dimly lit, and I'm like, this is not a good story right here. This is not right. And same day they called me about Judy. I went into his office, and he said, told me what renal failure was. I didn't know what that was. It means your kidneys aren't working. Organs shutting down. It's just bad. I'm like, well, what does this mean? He says, well, you have to figure out when you want to end this. You have to stop this. This is it. Even if she snapped out of it right now, she would have to have organ transplants, and it's way worse than you thought it was, Randy. There's no way. This doesn't work. It was just, yeah. And Jessica and I, we had talked about it before, that she had a friend in Florida that was familiar with hospice and stuff, and we already knew. We said, well, in the end, you don't want to hang on another week. You don't want to just sit there. Act quickly. Get it over with. It's the only card you have left to play. So we called everybody, and everybody just came right up. So Judy had passed away at 10 o'clock in the morning, and everybody got there that night, and 8 o'clock at night, they took the tube from Linda. And yeah, it doesn't take long. Just, yeah. It doesn't, to this day, it just doesn't seem like it really happened that way, but it does. It does. And, you can get mad. If you've lost somebody and you're upset about it, God, you have your plan and it works great until God doesn't follow your plan. So you just have to go to where God is. You have to see where he's going, and, it's all his. My wife was only borrowed to me for that amount of time. So you can't hang on to that stuff. You can't claim it for your own. She's a child of God. They're all just lent to us. So you just have to hold on loosely, and you just have to acknowledge his sovereignty, and it's his. It's all his to deal with. But, yeah. It's all his plan. And, people that lose people, they just get upset and they just have a hard time with us. And I get it. You have to grieve, and you have to be there in your grief, and you have to just solve the riddle on your own. But at some point, I really believe that the devil takes delight in you dragging it out. You have to be grateful. If you don't have gratefulness, if you're not grateful for what you had, or what you were given, or what you were temporarily given, if you don't see it that way, it's got to be really hard. But you have to be grateful for the past. You can't discount that at all. You have to know that God is loving and kind in his own way. And he does what is best. It's a big story. It's not just us, and it's not just me. It's everybody. Anyway. And just a sidebar, you guys really value your wife. Seriously. If you look back, you will regret it. Trust me. Put your phone down and get to what's important. Get that lady to you. Anyway, whatever. That was a bad year. Very bad year. Lost my mother-in-law, lost my sister, lost my wife. Had cancer. Oh, brother, even after my wife's funeral, I had to go to radiation for 20 mornings in a row. Awesome. Got me out of bed, got me to the hospital every morning, just made me work it. It was a long year. 2021 doesn't work for me. It's a terrible year. Terrible year. Anyway, God, in his own time, he fixes everything in his own way. And if you know me, you know I'm not there anymore. And I'm weak. I couldn't stay there. I got married right out of high school. Seriously, I didn't know how to pay bills. I was always used to being married. Always married. Always married. I need help. I need professional help. I really do. Yeah. You ever made a deal with God and you said, tell him, well, if you just speak to me clearly, then I'll know what you want, right? Has anybody ever done that? Has anybody ever said that? Well, that's all great until he says something really, really crazy. That's great. Then you're like, really? You're going to pick that? You're going to say that? It wasn't very long after my wife had died that I woke up one morning and I saw a vision of a name. I always say it looks like somebody turned the TV on. Instead of saying Sony, it said a 4-letter woman's name. It said Gina's name. And that was crazy because I had never talked to Gina. I knew exactly who she was. I knew her husband. Her friends knew me. Her friends knew her. We were just ran in the same circles. I knew her husband had died in 2019. I'd never talked to her, and it completely surprised me. Second morning, I woke up, same thing, saw the same thing over again. So I checked it out. Her Facebook, I think, actually said she was married, so I was like relieved. It was like, great, okay, this is not for me. Third morning it happened. I was not happy with God. I said terrible things. I did not like that. I had never been so confused in my whole life. Anyway. Kept it to myself for about 2 months. Maybe after like 3 months, I told a couple people. They know who they are. They know what they did. They know their crime. They told me, keep seeing the doctor, keep taking your pills, be a good boy, stay on it. And it wasn't right. Yeah. Anyway, so eventually, as time went by, I decided Alyssa and I should go to church. We should go to church. And by some small coincidence, I realized what church she went to. She went to a really nice church. She, the name I was looking for, I thought, well, maybe I just need to help her. Maybe I just need to go to this grief share group that she's supposedly working on. Maybe, maybe she's just a friend. Maybe that's how it works. Anyway, God does some crazy things. So Alyssa and I came to New Life, and eventually you guys were offering baptism. Who wanted to get baptized for 2 years? Who was working on that? Yeah, that was me. Yeah. So I got baptized here, and some crazy things really happened. I had a crazy dream. I had a crazy vision. So eventually, I did work up the guts to talk to Gina. I told her I wanted to talk to Darren. I had to tell him something. And she told me he wasn't there today. So there I did. I spoke to her. I said, oh, by the way, I think I sent you a letter in the mail. I hope that's okay. So we wrote letters back and forth to start. And the rest is history. God does some pretty amazing things. He can give you something really great, and then he can take it away, and then he can start over again. He's beautiful. He can do whatever he wants because he is God, and we just have to follow his way. I'm done, Brad.
Well, just a reminder as we go from this place, first of all, I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday. It's a beautiful day out there. But we're starting a new series next week called Kingdom Culture, where we're going to be looking at the parables of Jesus. And I read this quote about the parables a couple days ago that really struck me. It said there's parts of the Bible that are filled with grand theology. There's other parts that are filled with really compelling teaching. But the parables ask us if it's made an actual difference in our lives. And that's what we're going to be talking about this summer, is looking at when the rubber hits the road of faith, has it made any difference in our lives? And so join us next week as we talk through the parables of Jesus. There's some really, really good ones in there, and it's going to be a great summer together. So love you guys. Thank you again, Randy, for sharing, and to Cheryl, wherever she is, probably working somewhere. Love you guys. Have a great rest of your weekend. Yes. Oh, there's grab bags of tacos if anybody wants to take some tacos to go. So enjoy yourselves.